Alright, so here we are for part 2. We've got our workstation PC almost set up here. We're going to install this Deepcool Castle 240 RGB AIO liquid cooler into this PC along with some CF 120 fans, so those should look pretty nice. We're going to install this bad boy, which is the Western Digital Black NVMe drive. This thing trades blows with the Samsung 970 Pro, which is pretty impressive. Western Digital did a pretty good job with this SSD. I'm also going to be pulling some parts from inside that PC, like all my drives and stuff like that. And we've got all our beautiful drive cages right over here, which we'll be installing over here. I know having a bunch of drive cages is not going to be the most aesthetic thing, but I want as much storage inside this PC case as possible. That's why I really wanted to go with the Darkbase 900 Pro Rev 2. It's just a very versatile case, and you have loads and loads of options for storage. As if you guys saw in my review, I went over all those storage options, which was quite vast in my opinion. I would go with some sort of network attached storage, or NAS for short, and get some drives in some sort of, I don't know, 4 or 5 bay closure and have it attached to the PC and get a smaller PC. But that's a lot of money to lay down right now, so this is going to be a good alternative. So I'll just have my own NAS, I guess, in here, but it's not through a network, it's through SATA. Oh, by the way, also got a new piece of PC art up here, the Motherboard Flow. That's available on the store right now if you want to check that out. I know, I'm plugging right now. Alright, so here's a couple things that I ran into some issues with when installing this cooler. Not that it's a bad installation or anything, it mashes with the design specifications of this case, and that's kind of the hard thing to kind of plan ahead of when you're building a computer, especially for your first time coming into any sort of clearance issues, which is what happened up here. As you can see, we have like these 2 separate tubes over here, along with a little drain port over here, and it was just too wide to fit in here and have all these holes aligned, so it couldn't sit up here anywhere. So the only place would be up here. Now the next problem I ran into issue with was being able to install these fans in the front. I mean, I could if I really tightened them down a lot and it was squishing against the rubber and everything. I mean, that's fine for me, but I thought of a better solution, and that was to just mount the radiator to the frame with the provided screws that came with this, and then put the 140mm fans that I have from BeQuiet over this, so that I can still showcase the RGB fans that come with this cooler as well as the cooler itself, so I can have all the RGB goodness without being able to see it from the front, because the front is closed off and you won't be able to see any of the illumination from these fans, which is kind of unfortunate, but I solved that issue by mounting these instead, which worked out pretty well. Now the only tricky thing was being able to screw in around the frame of the radiator. Now you could be saying, well, why didn't you just mount the fans first? Well, how are you supposed to mount this after you already mounted this? So you have to mount this first, the radiator, and then mount the fans. And then I'm gonna mount the RGB fans all up here. Now the only thing is, the ones that came with the cooler are the same as the ones that came with the extra ones that I got over here. Now these have black rubber ends, whereas the ones that came with the cooler have gray. So I'll just put them in a pattern, you know, gray, black, and it'll match nicely with the custom cable. So that actually works out pretty nicely. So that's the next thing I'm gonna work on. Alright, so I have the cooler installed. It's beautiful, it's a massive block, and it also suits TR4. I'm really excited to use this. The PC is almost pretty much complete. I installed everything I needed to get done and installed on here all my Adobe applications, my Microsoft applications. I have my hard drive bays set up as well. So these are going to be all populated, or at least for the most part populated. And I finished everything that I need to get onto my C drive. Everything else I'm just gonna kind of be leaving behind, because all this is just leftover software from so many different things and projects. I'm just not going to go through it and filter it out. Plus this is all on an SSD, and then you have to clone it and then put it onto my new NVMe SSD, and I don't feel like doing that, and I don't want to deal with all this clutter. I just kind of want to start from fresh. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to dismantle all the HDDs in here and get them slotted into that. And also my NAS 8TB hard drive just came in. Hopefully this works. I'll be formatting it and testing it as soon as I get this PC together. This is going to be used as my backup drive, but we're going to get this thing dismantled, so let's do it. I have all the drives installed, and I took the covers and put them back over the drives, and they're not really meant for that, but they came out actually kind of nicer than I expected, so I just left them on there. I was just kind of messing around, so it adds this really nice clean look to it. Alright, so I am continually impressed with the Dark-Base 900 Pro Rev 2 with its modularity and flexibility. I always have been with BeQuiet cases, and this is making a fantastic workstation for me. There's only two major concerns for me. One is airflow. Of course, it's not absolutely terrible. It's definitely manageable, and I can work with it, so that's not really my main issue. The main issue is the cable management in the back. There's plenty of cable routing options, and I made a full review of this case, so if you guys haven't seen that, go check it out. It'll be in the card over here. And also sorry if the camera's a little close to my face. But the problem is there's just not a ton of space in the back. I would be perfectly fine with this case being an extra inch or two wider and having a 1 inch, maybe even a 3-inch cavity in between the rear wall and the back of the case panel, because there's just not enough. And I have a lot of flex on that rear panel, and it was very tough to get that panel shoved into the actual slot mechanism that it needs to be able to properly be installed. So it's just a little tight for me. Other than that, this case is absolutely magnificent for what I'm working with here, and the flexibility, modularity is absolutely out of this world, and I love it every single time over, and the quality is just top notch. So now we're gonna get into some fancy, sexy B-roll. So let's do that. So I turned on the computer and none of my drives are showing up except for my two M.2 based drives. Everything else, all my HDDs were not showing up. So I swapped around the connectors and whatnot, and nothing was working. And then eventually I got a critical service failure. So now I have to reset the PC and start from scratch. I was not able to create a backup because I literally just installed everything yesterday. So I'm only going to keep my files here. All my programs I'm going to have to reinstall. It's okay, I did not have a bunch of stuff, so I'll have to just reinstall the programs that I had yesterday. It's just going to be a little bit of a setback right now. It's kind of unfortunate, but hopefully I can get to the bottom of this and get all my drives up and running. Alrighty, so I've been trying to figure out what's wrong with my drives for a long time now. All the drives are in good working condition. Even the 8TB NAS drive, I got it to work. It's all working just perfectly fine. But the issue is that this motherboard will only recognize any SATA device in ports A1 and A2. I don't know if I could show that to you guys, but let me try to highlight it with my flashlight here. Those right there. Those are the only ones that will recognize any SATA devices. I tried every single port and none of them will recognize the drive. The drives are on, they're perfectly fine. My last option is to get rid of this motherboard, or at least extract it, and take the one from that PC down there and put it in here, which means I have to gut both of these PCs, and yeah, really sucks. Alright, well, let's do this. With the power of editing, this is just gonna be done in a matter of seconds. God, I wish I could just live in the editing stage. Alright, so I swapped, oh crap. I swapped the motherboard and everything, and then I realized, it just hit me, that I'm using up all the PCIe lanes that I have. I have another M.2 SSD here, and I also have an NVMe drive up here, so that means I'm only left with these two slots up here. I don't know, I might just leave this motherboard in here and just call it a day, because this is a real, they're both pretty much identical VRM. The only difference I know of is that there's a heat pipe going from this heatsink to the SoC heatsink, and so there's a better dispersion of heat. I don't know if it's going to make so much of a difference, because the 8700K just runs ridiculously hot. I have to retire this drive because I need that 8TB drive for all my backup storage. And this just goes to show that you just need more PCIe lanes when you're working with workstations and stuff like that. I would much rather be on a X299 or X399, preferably X399 with Threadripper, but I just don't have that kind of money, so I'm not going to be doing that anytime soon. So I have to make do with what I have. All I had to do was just remove this drive, and I would have been completely fine and not had to go through any of this. Wow.